Because I was using his own word there of that's not a good bank, kind of playing along with him, trying to lead him down this path and saying that's eliminating a bad thing. That's what a market is.
But with the loan guarantees, that would keep the bank in business.
And I would have done it in small market city.
But that's why even I was finding it a little bit difficult to follow, and I think you could.
Yeah, which I didn't try to quibble a lot because I didn't know where he was going with. There are bad banks out there. I'm like, yeah, and
Good. You want to try it again?
You want to try it again, but try to like break it down in a way that like even I can understand where you're going at with this.
So
Just wait. Let me ask you. Explain to me again. The point you're trying to make is that banks will go out of business.
It's just like
whether they
an
have
economic point. That there are good banks and bad banks, and the way bad banks are eliminated, they make bad decisions, and that's been less bad.
So what? So he wants to
that's
get rid of the
how,
loan guarantee. So won't that happen under what?
No, I'm saying that loan guarantees as they are now is not necessarily a bad thing because it can eliminate bad banks. It's teaching banks, in a sense, to review their applicants.
it's teaching them to make bad decisions, and then they help them get out of their bad decisions.
Yeah.
Wait, but this is government giving grants to banks to prevent, like to,
No, it's more like a government insurance.
yeah. So like if a bank makes a bad decision, they get
bailed out. Yeah,
bailed out.
Okay,
By
then I didn't understand.
40%.
Yeah.
80%.
There's still
80.
80.
Okay, I didn't understand the loan guarantees.
Okay. Okay. Good.
That's
Okay.
Yes. Isn't it true that people smoke cigarettes?
Yeah.
If Congress passed a bill that made cigarettes illegal for health reasons, would it be a health policy?
It depends on how you want to categorize it.
Very good.
what I would say.
Very
Is it
good.
true that cigarettes are
I should give like electrical shocks when people do that.
Is it true that cigarette butts are unbiodegradable?
Yes.
Do unbiodegradable trash hurt the environment?
Yes.
Even though this policy would help the environment, isn't it true that this policy was made for health purposes instead of environmental?
If good environmental policy means good health.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the resolution to change a policy that affects the environment, or is it to change environmental policy?
Is it changed environmental policy?
Okay, would you agree that in this debate round we need to argue about policy, environmental policy or policies that affect the environment?
Okay.
Yes, okay, thank you. No further questions.
Okay, now, those who are more experienced debaters, I don't think that's the kind of subject you want to do cross-examination on. Because I just think you got somebody who's a little more passive, and it just seems to me like you could have just jumped and argued about all of that stuff that was going on.
I
Yes.
personally would have done your first two questions and then jumped off. Because basically, what you got him to admit was basically he would categorize cigarettes as a environmental policy. You leave right there. You get back and then you argue in your speech, but that's completely unreasonable. Because because they do hurt the environment, you do that in the speech, but you basically got him to say that the resolution includes abolishing cigarettes, which I think, you did your point there. You kind of blew up his definition of environmental policy. You can come up with your own one, but 2 questions is pretty quick. Let's move on to something else would be my guess.
Yeah.
But, yeah. You had them too.
But okay, Anna, what are your thoughts on doing topicality and cross-sects?
It seems to me that topicality can be 2 questions, and that's it. But again, you don't want to go to the jugular because that's essentially what we're trying to do, I think, is get like every inch of it covered and set up and established. And a lot of topicality is rhetorical anyway, so you kind of want to set your speech up in your speech and not cross-X. But
So you think you shouldn't go for topicality and cross-sects at all, or you think you should just go for a
maybe
little
like
bit?
if you want to establish facts, like isn't it true that your definition defines it so, we're talking about protecting the environment and protecting the environment alone. I mean, that seems like an appropriate question to ask, because then leave it there.
Okay.
And then show why they're not protecting the environment through the policy.
For what it's worth, I just think that for cross-examination, topicality, I think, is not the first place to start. I know in your minds you're thinking, if you don't have topicality, you're done. And so that's why you want to start there. But I think you want to make that in your speeches, because I think it's too abstract to try to develop in cross-examination. So I think I would, I mean, and I just, because some of you do more debate, I mean, this is how I would do it in a courtroom. I just think that that's too complex of a concept to try to develop in a cross-examination. And so I think that you want to have more modest goals with cross-examination. And sometimes, because I think some of these are kind of more like logic chain things that you're doing. And I don't think that's, you just want to state, if you have a logical argument, you just want to make it during one of your speeches, rather than trying to get people like, okay, now where is he going at with all this? I just don't get this, that sort of thing. So like for example, when he says, this is unconstitutional, you say, well, Congress gives loans to the car industry. They give, to home builders. They give, home buyers. They give subsidies. So you're saying, how can it be unconstitutional if the government's doing it? And then it forces him to kind of develop that argument. I think you want to be more simple in what you're going for in cross-examination, or it gets to be too complicated. And even if you're kind of a really skillful question asker to get them to kind of admit that, you're thinking of, like judges who are, may not be real advanced in their thinking, going, I just don't know what happened there. Okay, you control the witness, but I just don't get it. So you also want to be aware of the communication dimension, like the point comes across with the cross-examination. So I think that'd be one thing I would say is like dumb it down in a sense. I mean, make your more complex arguments when you have total control of the speech, but you want to put the cookies on the bottom shelf when you're doing cross-examination, or else people don't get it, what you're trying to do. So you want to try? See if you fill that.
Ben, a loan guarantee basically is given, or a nuclear loan guarantee is given to a nuclear plant, and if the plant goes under, the business 80% of that loan, or
It's covered by the tax.
is given back to the company that went under, correct?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Okay, I think you get too much stuff in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to establish what a loan guarantee was. Okay, let's.
I would break it down if that's important. I think you're asking too much, and then you have to give him the floor to explain where you're wrong.
Okay, loan guarantee is basically money, 80% of the loan refunded by a bank, correct? Banks do it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now your position in your
Actually,
speech.
no, the government does it, not us.
Okay, then your position in your speech is that loan guarantees are harmful for banks.
Yes.
Okay, now do banks research alternative energy?
Correct.
They do?
Yes.
Banks do.
Well, if you mean like looking into a
Okay,
company
do
that
banks
does alternate-
or do banks produce electricity?
No.
Do banks decrease warming?
No.
Do banks fight pollution?
No.
Okay, now don't banks simply manage, or are they involved in financial issues?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I had. I wasn't sure where exactly I'd take that.
What were you trying to do with that? Because I wasn't quite
He's
following.
focusing.
Yeah.
He's focusing on banks instead of actual environmental. Even if I didn't necessarily argue like some other people were that he's dealing with energy instead of environment, he's dealing with banks more than energy or environment. I don't know. I was just thinking about.
Okay, I understand what you're trying to do. So you're trying to say that all this stuff can happen with or without this program. That doesn't really affect.
He's trying to
He's
say
focusing on banks, like.